In this apocalypse, the sun has disappeared, plunging the world into an eternal night. However, there's also something that really wants me dead. My mission is to find a car so I can escape this city. The problem? I have an immortal zombie following me at all times, no matter where I go. Even if I manage to lose it for a short while, it will teleport back to me soon enough. Will I be able to make it out of this city? Or will I just be another victim? I start off the run in a hospital. I actually have no idea where I am when I start, so I don't know how hard it'll be to find a working car to get out. Being in a hospital, however, I decided to make the most of it. I picked up tweezers, suture needles, and bandages, and a lot of medication. These are useful. Whereas in a normal game of Zomboid, you can get hit and just not fight for a while, ignoring the zombie here isn't really an option. So if I get hurt, I'd better have some bandages on me. Since this was my first time using the 1Z mod, I actually didn't know what to expect or where he would come from, so I just kinda explored the rooms around me to see if they had anything of value. There really wasn't anything special, but at least I got some crutches I could use as a weapon. Once again, this little office room didn't have much, so I decided to step outside. Since I still didn't know where it would come from, I didn't know that my first encounter would be so sudden. Looking around, I immediately saw it jump over a fence and start sprinting my way. Of course I hit it, which doesn't harm it whatsoever. It only gives me a small fighting chance or a little time window to run away. I tried hiding and looking around the corner to see if it knew where I was, even though it didn't see me hide. And yes, it does. In fact, the 1Z always knows where you are. Your only option of temporarily stopping it is to have it get stuck on a door or some barricades. Utilizing some quick thinking, I realized it wasn't gonna die after about 20 hits with a crutch. So I decided to go for the next best option. I tried to find some house I could trap it in, or at least lose it by running through. Now, I had spawned in Corkman Medical. Walls are actually very important with this mod. You can jump over them and force the zombie to route around them. This usually gives you at least a bit of a time window to run away and hide. From what I've found, it actually seems to be vulnerable to multiple level buildings, since it can't actually see me up here. I knew I wasn't safe because I could still hear it squirting blood everywhere outside. It didn't seem to be banging on any doors though, so I decided to go downstairs to check it after regaining some stamina. Rest assured, it was still there, and now it was actively trying to get in. I didn't know how long that door would last, considering this zombie is a lot stronger than the average ones. So I decided to just run out the back of the house and try to hide. Unknowingly, I had just survived what I like to call one of its cycles. Essentially, the 1Z has two main phases from what I've seen. It has the chase mode, in which it's actively pursuing me, and sometimes it can go dormant for a short while before reappearing near me. Now, It hadn't yet spotted me, but I could already hear its signature sound cue of the slushing blood outside. It seems like it pretty much knows where you are, but it only has a vague idea of your position. I decided to use this to my advantage. It still didn't know that I was actually in here, so I got the chance to look around upstairs for loot. Eventually I decided to leave the house. I had a general idea of the places I wanted to check out, so I made a quiet escape in order to avoid pulling it over to me. My general plan was simple enough. I planned on getting near the highway, as that's statistically where the most car spawns are going to be. If I could just get one car with at least a key, I could start working on escaping. Once again, I could hear its noises outside. The way I'm assuming this mod works is that it only pings your location to the zombie every few seconds, or maybe minutes. It didn't seem to know I was actually inside, as it was just standing by the window. So I assumed it's only programmed to be able to spawn outside of houses. So as long as I stay indoors and maybe board up all the lines of sight, I should be fine until the zombie hears me. At some point it heard me, as it was now actively trying to get in once again, forcing me to go find some other place to hide in. I decided to take a risky move by going through this forest area. I knew that if I followed it, I could get all the way up near the top of Muldraugh with barely any obstructions. All I had to do was pray that the 1Z wasn't actually going to spawn near me. During the almost 4-minute walk, I literally didn't have it find me once until near the end. This is what I believe to be its sleeping phase. It didn't teleport near me for a very long time, which is actually one of the greatest ways to create anxiety and horror in a scenario like this. As the player, I really only have one decent way to figure out if I'm being chased. For some reason, the 1Z has a sort of panic aura to it. Whenever it's nearby, my character starts getting panicked. The moment I see that panic mood pop up, I already know it's coming. Soon enough, it was back. And this is a very bad place to have it. The 1Z is generally faster than the player, meaning that if you're caught in open areas, you have really no option but to keep sprinting. That's the main reason why my build for today actually didn't take strong, and instead I decided to settle for athletic. Regardless, your only option is to keep running until you lose it at some point. I immediately started looking around me for any good house I could use. Soon enough, I came across a survivor house. These usually are really good because they have a ton of weapons inside, sometimes even having stashes of guns. While trying to run away, I tripped over a fence. Now I was not only wounded, but I was also going to have my attack speed impaired. I can only be glad the game didn't actually scratch my leg. I bandaged myself up, but it didn't help the fact that I had a deep wound on my arm. I was gonna need to use a suture needle to patch it up whenever I could. Unfortunately, it was still very much on me. I decided to take some metal sheets and some propane torches. I could use these to block entrances. The problem with sprinters and the 1Z is not just that they're faster, as generally speaking most players tend to sprint on their way to everything. The real problem is that he's actually faster than you, and he will catch up if you don't lose him. I jumped the fence once again to buy me more time, and I decided to enter the survivor house from the back. If there were some guns, I could probably at least stun him from a distance. I managed to lock it behind a metal barricade. For the time being, this was gonna buy me enough time to loot the house and see what's around. Believe it or not, this survivor home had not one, not two, but absolutely zero firearms. Regardless, I took whatever I could and ran back out. Hopefully it would be stuck on that door long enough for me to find something useful. By now I was kinda lost. I don't actually know the layout of Muldraugh by heart, but I had an idea. I decided to hide in the second floor of a building and barricade the door into the room I was gonna sit in with a couch. Hopefully this meant that even if it did find its way up here, I would still have enough time to jump out the window. Opening up my map, I tried to figure out the fastest route to get onto the highway and ultimately onto the parking lots that many of the buildings near the highway have. Obviously the fastest path would just be to cut to the right, but the tool store was actually looking pretty good right now. There would probably be materials to barricade in there, so I decided I should check it out on my journey to find a car. While I was resting, an alarm went off and pulled it exactly to the room I was in. This gave me no choice but to exit right away. Good thing I left when I did, because if you just heard, that was the door breaking. For the majority of my trip up, the 1Z was back into its passive mode and it wasn't actively following me. Or so I think. Maybe it's just somewhere out of sight. Still following me, just not in an obvious way. Eventually, I started coming across more cars. I entered and exited this car about 7 times. And just like that, it was already back. I wasn't going to be able to enter a vehicle while it was chasing me. I was gonna have to get it into one of its passive cycles before getting anything done. I decided to just keep running until I would eventually get to the warehouse at the top of Muldraugh. It has garage doors which have quite a bit of health, so there was a good chance I could trap it inside and run away. Soon enough, however, it appeared to have gone back into a sleep cycle and stopped following me. I used this time to check out some cars nearby. If any of them had gas, that would be a good start. If any of them had keys, that would be even better. I had found a flare gun, which I intended to use to try and burn the thing alive, assuming that would do any damage to it. At this point, I was also feeling way too secure, so I started entering more houses in case it wanted to spawn randomly. Additionally, I found a large flashlight in this mechanic store. This was great, especially paired with a permanent night setting. That piece was relatively short-lived though, as the moment I stepped outside, it decided to come back. I decided to try and aim to take a shot with the flare gun. While it didn't exactly hit, I tried to lead it back through the flames to set it on fire, hoping this would at least slow it down marginally. It didn't, and now I had the 1Z following me, but it was also on fire. I quickly made my way over to the warehouse and tried to get in. My plan here was relatively simple. I just had to get it inside and then I could trap it in here as I ran out. It did, however, bite me in the process. Well, bites usually mean the end of a normal run. Since my win condition here was just to get into a car and drive out of Muldraugh, I actually didn't really care much about it. I just bandaged it and prayed it wouldn't affect my fighting capabilities too much. Unfortunately for me, I noticed the warehouse door had been broken, and in fact the 1Z was already back on me. Turns out, those doors aren't really that strong. I now had to find some other way to get it to despawn and enter its sleep cycle again so I could check more cars. But I really didn't have any good idea of what to do. For the first time ever, I used a full sprint with Alt, just so that I could get enough time to climb over this wall. I then went through some backyards until I was back on the street, praying that I had lost it in the process. I decided to hide in the mechanic shop for the time being. It might not be very secure, but basically all the entrances have windows or garage doors, meaning that it's pretty loud whenever he tries to break in. I checked my map to think about where I could find a car that I hadn't yet checked. I figured my best option was just to keep going downwards and checking pretty much every car I could find. If I at least found one that had a key in it, I could work on refueling it. The gas station is still active as it's day 1, so I should be able to just get some gas in a bottle and fuel it up manually. One of the advantages of only having one zombie around is that you really don't have to care about making noise. As long as it was in its sleep cycle, I could pretty much break any window I wanted to get into cars. For the most part, I really had no luck. Things weren't looking good. My only advantage was that there were quite a few cars around here. These parking lots are one of the best places to find cars with gas and with keys in them. Eventually though, I found a car with its key in it. At last, I was getting ready to get out of here. However, I still needed gas as this one was empty. I then checked the car literally right next to it and it also had a key. So I decided to see if this one had gas. And it actually did. Now with a functional car, I could drive away to a place where presumably the 1Z wouldn't find me. Proving that actually, I can survive the 1Z in Project Zomboid.